Yeah, so my name is Pascaline Lepeltier. We are in downtown Manhattan. We're in Chepika, and we're in the restaurant where I am the wine director. It's called Chambers. So I have a little bit of a strange background. I studied philosophy, and I have a master in philosophy where I studied the philosophy of language with about a philosopher called Bergson. And I was on my way to get my diploma to teach, and I felt like I was too young. I was 21 at the time, and I didn't felt I could really be a great teacher or professor. I had no experience in life. I could play with concept, but not with life. So I decided to take a sabbatical year, and my philosophy teacher loved wine, and he said, "You should go work somewhere. Why don't you go work in a wine shop?" And I went. And I loved it. I needed to make a bit of money. I started to work in a catering company, and I loved it. I discovered the world of wine and restaurant because my parents are not at all in this universe. And the rest is history. I went into hospitality study and wine. Yeah, so I've been a wine director in New York like since 16 years now. And for my previous restaurant, I was looking for an organically certified wine. My previous restaurant was very driven by local, but also health. And we are here in Northeast America, and it's extremely complicated to have organic wine. One of the reasons being most of the disease that Vitis vinifera is sensitive to are coming from this part of the world. So I contacted a friend, Nathan Kendall, who is born and raised in the Finger Lakes, which is a beautiful wine region in the north of the state. And Nathan, after researching, said, "Listen, we can't grow Vitis vinifera. Nobody wants to farm for us organically." But I found this extremely old, organically certified hybrid vineyard. And it was at the time in 2014-15 still kind of a dirty secret from the Finger Lakes. So this is a region where you have grape growing since millennials, but they are American grapes and they are not suited to make wine. They haven't been domesticated, and so the berries are extremely small, they're extremely acidic. And you have the European vines, the Vitis vinifera, that have been domesticated for millennia. They are suited to make wine. And so what happened is when you started to get the colonization, you get more exchange between the two continents, and the colons were trying to grow Vitis vinifera here in Northeast America, and they could not because of phylloxera. It took them a long time to figure it out, but meanwhile, what happened is spontaneously the American vine, the labruscas, the riparias, that you can still see everywhere growing wild, they cross-pollinated with the Vitis vinifera. And we started to get hybrids between the two species. And that started really during the 17th century a little bit, but really accelerated in 18th and 19th century. And these grapes, naturally spontaneously crossed in nature, are way more suited to survive disease and phylloxera. And they became the backbone of the New York State wine industry, the Ohio wine industry. And all the Northeast started to grow all these hybrids. They have a very specific taste, more or less important depending on the grape, but they have a taste. And so this very successful agriculture really blossomed in the 20th century. In the 18th century. In 20th century, we got prohibition, crisis, and all. So these grapes just kind of disappear. And in the Finger Lakes, they stayed. They are still 75% of the total acreage. It's a lot. But little by little, people managed to grow vinifera in the 1960s. So they managed to grow the Riesling and the Chardonnay. They brought Arcatitellis, Piravi from Georgia and all. And they really wanted to focus on this vinifera. And they kind of forgot about the hybrid culture, or forgot. They didn't want to recognize it could be equal. And so when we started the project with Nathan, I discovered the whole history of hybrids, and nobody really showed me hybrids before that. They were almost ashamed of that. And so with Nathan, we decided, okay, these grapes are here since like 200 years. They are growing extremely well. They're organic. They're old vine. This is what I'm looking for. Why don't we give it a try? and let's to make them as a really, really high quality wine. And it's what we did. We made sparkling wine the way it was done in the 19th century. And we made our first wine called Chepika. But the project evolved quite quickly into something bigger. So it's not our main project for me and Nathan. It evolved because we realized that there was a lot of prejudices about these grapes. And overall, with evolution of technology, there was a lot of prejudices about what should be growing where. And the technology allows us to do things today, but maybe we shouldn't be doing certain things. And in the case of these grapes, they are the most suited to make wine up. So we were just trying to say, listen, in a very complex biotop environment, maybe worth to explore what can grow well without human intervention, with what chemical, with all these problematic products we know about, and just try to make something that we can find a market for, because it always happens like that. In fact, so you change a market and you create a product for that. So this is what we try to do. And we also wanted to talk about the project to kind of shed light on the history of the lake, especially with a native tribe that got forgotten, got spoliated from the soil. So Chepika means root in the Lenape language, which is a language spoken by the Delaware tribe. They were just at the northern limit and they were present in the Finger Lake. So we are working with a Delaware grape. That's the name of the grape. We are working with the Catawba grape, which is also another native tribe. And it felt important for us to talk about that because it's not that well spoken in the lakes. And we decided also to give back some of the profit of the wine. So it's a real passion project about farming, about what it means to be local, and then what does that mean to belong to a community. So we are supporting different associations. One of them is called Ogisda, and it's for the preservation and the diffusion of all the different knowledge that are being still alive in the lake from the different native tribe of the area. So that's a project. Every year the wine is changing depending on the vintage. We are trying to show that hybrids have a potential of aging. We can make the wine with absolutely nothing. So there is no sulfites, there is nothing into the wine. And it's a larger project about what does it mean to grow. We're very proud of it. It's very stimulating to know you can do what you love, but also try to talk about subjects that often are forgotten. Yes, I think the role of sommelier is evolving quite a lot. Sommelier is a pretty recent job. When you think about it, it's like 120, 150 years old, so it's not very old. He moved in his evolution with the evolution of restaurants, with the evolution of how we dine, and of course the expansion of the wine world. I think today, if you have a sommelier, and if you're a sommelier in a dining room, you have to be, and you need to continue to be first and foremost a restaurant person. I think the experience of going in restaurants are going to continue to evolve, and we can already see it. I think restaurants that really are playing a part are not the places where you just feed yourself like that. You can do that in a salad bar. But if you really want to go to a restaurant, you are looking for a social interaction. You are looking for something very unique happening during the very intimate act of eating. So there is this very important thing to remember. And I think as a sommelier, we have a very specific relationship with our guests, because if you go to anywhere, you take a menu and you get a maitre d' or you get a server or captain, and you are going to pick from the menu what you want. If you go to a restaurant and you get a sommelier with a wine list that's a bit more complex, often people don't know what to choose. So suddenly you come into play, and you are going to have a very special relationship with that guest, because you are going to have to enhance and to start a dialogue where that person is going to have to describe his own personal tastes. And that's something that very few people know how to do. It's extremely intimate. So there is really a necessity to create a connection with people that you don't know in a few minutes, in a busy dining room, in a very heavily coded social environment. And how do you make that person feel at ease to be able to express things that are so difficult to express because nobody does it on a daily basis? And this is where I think sommelier job is going to continue to evolve, having this interaction and re-offering a service, re-offering something special, and understanding what that person wants, and then matching it with what you have in your cellar. So I see my job evolving from originally, rebuilding a list, making sure it was economically sound, making sense with the food, and making sense really with the pairing-wise. And I realize, in fact, it's not a mistake, but that's not really what's happening. What I really need to do is to match a wine with a person, and to have people really live the wine experience and why wine can be so special amongst every other beverages, alcoholic beverages. This is something that is critical today because we see the wine consumption going down. We see people not interested by drinking wine as much as other people. There is no ritualization, which I think is very, very important to create a special moment, to create a mindset where you're welcoming something special. And I think that's where the job is going. It's very difficult because what you are taught at sommelier school is not that. You are taught appellation, grape variety, you are taught vintages and all, but you are not taught how to read the guest and make sure to try to connect in order to really have that person have that experience. Sometimes they don't necessarily want to have this dialogue, it's fine, but my job is still to have them have a blast, have this very satisfying moment with a bottle of wine in their food. Maybe we are not going to talk about it at all, they're just going to tell me, oh, I want that full-bodied red wine. I'm just going to find the bottle, pour it. They are going to live this experience amongst themselves, but they are going to have that. And why do I say it's so important? Because I really think the future evolution of society is going to go through food, is going to go through the quality of what we eat, and so we need to develop every opportunity to expose our guests to the taste. So that's how, for me, the job evolved. It's not anymore about also building lists with like crazy amount of names. They are getting rarer and rarer, more and more expensive. It's really about opening up as much as possible the world of possible in your list, and matching it with whoever is coming through your door, in a way that that person can become a patron of your restaurant, but also a patron of wine in general, and live with that idea of, wow, wine is very special. I never thought it could be like that. That's the job today, having a glass of wine or a bottle of wine on the table. Yes, in 15 years for sure. When I arrived, it was still dominated by the very, very classic European wine on one side, so the main big region. And here in the US, it was still the moment of the very heavy big Napa cab. And with a lot of, in fact, people discovering wine. So you had the very Francophile, Italophile that had this knowledge, but otherwise a lot of people were discovering fine wine, as well as they were discovering fine cocktails. So there was really something about this movement in 2009, 10, where people were more curious about this kind of beverages. It evolved extremely quickly. I think what I would say in this country is how quick the trends, how quick a new country, a new grape can appear, and how quickly it can spread out. It got even faster during COVID with different reason, with people at home, looking more and more on Instagram, doing a lot of Zoom tasting. A lot of great talents in main markets just started to work in other states, and suddenly things that were really kind of New York-esque just became America-esque. And so you saw that switch from powerful, kind of sweet and spiced wine 15 years ago, evolving quickly with people into wine that got more and more and more and more subtle. So a transition with red wine, less sweet, less extracted, less alcohol, less sweetness, to go today with this devotion even to extremely pale, light Jura wine or things like that. And it happened very quickly, not even 10 years. For organic, biodynamic wine, they really were supported by the explosion of the natural wine movement that was extremely frail in 2009 and 10, grew up in 14, 15, exploded just before COVID, and is still very strong. And played a very big part for me to attract a younger clientele. And that we need to recognize that. They brought other people in the business. And like everything, like this is also an area, a city, a country where people like to go to extreme. So when they push to the extremes, there is a pendulum back. And so this is what we are seeing right now. But the main characteristic to finish for me is the curiosity. It's really today a place where you can explore and have people ready to pay, to listen for a good wine. They don't really care where it comes from. They had the experience of the benchmark. A lot of people here tried the best wine in the world. Some people with money, they go directly to the best one in the world, or what they say to be the best one in the world, without even education, kind of. They just, oh, that's, so I tasted that. And where do you go from that? If you tasted all the DRC, or the Auvergnois, or the Cellars of the world, where do you go from that? And they are kind of stepping back to see, okay, where else can I find that? Which region can give me this pleasure? And so we are seeing now really a diversity of origins. We'll see what's going to happen with the crisis. It's kind of a contraction often, and people going back to more comfort place. But I don't really see anything going really much more back than a little bit of that contraction. So it's a country where people are curious and where trends happen extremely quick and fast. And sometimes you just want maybe to slow that down a bit. Yeah, absolutely. So Chambers is the rebirth of a place called Racine that used to be in this location. We opened Racine in 2014. I joined the company in 2018. Racine had an extraordinary wine program catered by really passionate people. And it was a little bit more of a bar than a restaurant. And what happened is with COVID, we realized that Racine couldn't really survive the way we used to operate it before COVID. So we transformed it into Chambers. And Chambers, where we are right now, the goal was really to make it a restaurant that was a neighborhood restaurant where people could feel really at ease. Before, when we were to Racine, people were really scared about the wine. Like they were like, oh, if you're not a wine geek, you can't go to Racine. And so we really wanted to make sure that was not the case here. So really great food. And for the wine, I realized that financially I was just not able to have this type of wine I used to have before at Racine. Just it was impossible price-wise. And I was okay with that because I felt way more passion and enthusiasm to continue to explore, to have enough confidence in my taste or the vision, to make sure that I could put on list wine that you didn't see anywhere else, not for the sake of being unique, but just really because sincerely I was thinking that the quality of the wine was very, very high, and having exactly the same criteria of selection for everything. So everything that is put on this list is because I want that wine to be on the list. So created that freedom of business for me. So it was amazing because I really believe when you don't have that much money, you need to be more creative, and it forces you to take and go look outside, and this is what we did. And thanks to, I think, the fact that people are trusting me, they know that if something is on this wine list, it's because we really think there is something to say. And it allowed me to continue to welcome so many wines from everywhere. And we have the opportunity to have a very nice dining room, and I have the opportunity to be able to welcome people indeed that don't have maybe the fame, the recognition yet, but where we deeply believe the work is fantastic, and to support that. And I think that's a big part of the job also. And we are very happy to do that. And we created a clientele that comes for that, in fact, because they know that they will discover things that they've never seen anywhere else. And in a very competitive business, especially for wine, as you know, everybody wants the same bottle, and the same bottle are getting more and more expensive. I can't afford to have a $10,000 bottle of wine sleeping downstairs. I can't move. For $10,000 cost, I can buy so many other things. Okay, but I'm sorry, you won't have that here. I can give you 10 addresses of friends in New York where you can find it and have a great time with that bottle. But here, this is where you're going to find. Also at a great price for value, which I think it's a necessity to still find great wine that people can afford, normal people can afford. So once again, that forces me to look around, say, oh, that's beautiful, and it's still that price, so I can really put it at a good price on the list. And I'm having, it's a purpose, it's like my job really, I have really a purpose. And that feels extremely satisfying to know what you are doing is not for a selfish evolution or development, but you are really participating to something a bit bigger. So it's right, people really like it, and it's, it's very stimulating. Some of the basics are, well, we always need American and local wine, that's very important. And we have seen that market growing, in fact, so I need to do in the next couple of weeks a bigger work in that. So there is certain areas that we have to have, and it's very stimulating for me. Otherwise, it can be anything. It's really about wines that have a very strong identity, wines that can't be done anywhere else. We have a lot of French wine because I'm from France. We have a lot of Loire wine because I'm from the Loire, and it's not only is my favorite wine region, but I also think it's one of the great value region in the world. And then we cater to what people are also asking. So we know that there is a lot of demand for light red wine. There is a lot of demand for certain region, like Burgundy or Jura, for example. But we're also realizing that our clientele is asking us to find wine that have this profile somewhere else. So the number of times we have, we love Chardonnay from Burgundy, but can we try something equivalent somewhere else? So we really created that. So then it's depend on the opportunity, what I'm testing, where I'm testing. I'm trying to have a mix of younger, up-and-coming producer in any region and a mix of older vintages. So there is a balance between consignment, private collection, and a new things brought by the distributor. But overall, I think I'm really looking for wine with that extremely strong sense of identity. There is wines that work better with the food of John, my chef, John Carris, better, that I think are really, really great, is this high acid white with a little bit of body. So all the Chenin, the Riesling, the Manseng, the Verdicchio, all that, so that I'm looking for this kind of wine. So I know this couple of cluster of grapes, but I'm looking outside, where can I find that somewhere else? The red, like his food goes extremely well with high acid red from the Mediterranean. So everything Corsica, Sicily works very well, but we moved down to Croatia, we went down to Greece, we went down to Serbia, and so we are putting more of these countries. I also just put Ukraine as a country because I think it's very, very important also to support and to have a certain idea where you want to go. And for the criteria of farming is of course the key, but this idea of farming is about really understanding how that producer is working to respect his environment, with understanding also the limit of the environment. So we try really to know case by case what's happening. And that's absolutely, absolutely fundamental for me. We are working with people that are really trying to be part of the respect of their land and the possibility of continue to grow vitis vinifera with an understanding of what it takes in terms of agriculture, but also social development. So that's an absolute key for me. We are not putting organic or biodynamically certified. I did that in my previous list. It's very confusing for the guest. It's our work to make sure that it's approved. And also the fact that I know so many producers, I was lucky to visit so many wine regions, make this wine upstate. You know the reality. You know the reality of farming. You know certain vintages are incredibly complicated, like 24. certain region are also not suited necessarily. Like, you have all these parameters to understand, and so it's who I am to say I'm not going to take your wine because you are tilling your soil, or you are putting like a bit of sulfur, or you did one treatment. It's so unfair, and it's so narrow-minded. So I'm not, but I hope I create a relationship of trust with most of the people I work with, and we can have really engaging conversation, and I can understand where they stand, what are their struggles, what they are trying to do, what are their successes, how they can evolve. And that's the most satisfying, is to partner in this evolution and to make sure that little by little things are moving forward. That's the really stimulating part of the job. So I really try to put wine for people I respect. I can call, and if I don't know them, I know very well the distributor, and there is something human. The human touch is so important. Well, there is quite a lot. I still believe people should realize. Well, first, when working, but for me, she's such an example. I think people should really realize what Jancis Robinson did for this business. I don't think people realize how much she opened doors to so many of us in terms of credibility, and she still does it. At a level of commitment, of work that is extremely powerful. So somebody that I started to know a little bit more, I was reading, I was seeing, but my God, that woman, it's extraordinary. After that, I think there is stuff happening. What I'm seeing and what I'm extremely happy to see is a new generation of women being in charge of important estates or important structure. And that's very, very critical. I really believe one of the problems is that we still don't see enough women at the head of companies. And when it starts, when it happens, and they are not only willing to take the job, because it's often a big shoulder job, but also listened to by their team, by the financing behind them, is great. So I'm thinking about people like Saskia Rothschild, for example, that took over the Rothschild, the Lafite Rothschild company, and having someone like that with such a background, with a vision that is carrying on, and really is taking the decision to move in certain direction, is, well, also having a family life, having the balance, is really, really important. And now you see, I know there is a lot of Bordeaux bashing still around, but when you see the evolution a little bit in Bordeaux with a number of women that are taking over the pretty close-minded property, be it in Saint-Emilion, in Pauillac, like the Tesserons, the Dufaux-Lagaros, like that. For me, that's very inspiring to see. That give me some hope about that. In the sommelier world, I'm very, very admirative of Paz Levinson, and the work and the collaboration with Chef Anne-Sophie Pic. I think what they are doing is very also important. Paz being from Argentina, being in France, running so many Michelin stars all over the world. What she's bringing to the job, to the profession, in the different restaurants of Anne-Sophie Pic, opening to a lot of different beverages, the sourcing, the teaching, that's such an incredible way of showing it's possible. And I know that Paz can do it because she's also has a certain mindset, being a woman from Argentina with a different background. She's still kind of criticized a little bit for what she's doing, and I think it's absolutely unfair, because I think it's because she's a woman. And after that, you have quite a lot of scientists that nobody really talks about, that I think are also paving and are extremely important, and they're taking very high-hand positions. So we had come some of the historical one at UC Davis at the head of the neuroscience laboratory or genetics with Carol Menedis. But now I'm in talk with a lot of people in Bordeaux again, being in genetics or sensory analysis, and like Nathalie Ola, Sophie Tampere, so people more in the background, but that are also really like changing the scientific university side. So that's, and so when you put that together, we're really seeing women being put at the top of their game, having really team, very big company to run, and they're changing a little bit the game. They're adapting inside to allow more women also to be able to have a life, a family life. Because at the end, we are still going back to an issue of, it's not a question of talent or competency, just a question of the social structure of the society doesn't necessarily allow, still right now, for women to have the same freedom into their professional evolution than men. And that's, if these women are able to put it inside the companies they are running, that's a step forward. So that's this kind of woman I'm very, very. I'm part here of Les Dames d'Escoffier, which is an association of women in gastronomy. I came back just from Italy, where I was at a forum and with a woman in food, organized with some different Italian chef, critics, So I also believe this is very important, and we need to continue to connect and to help each other, especially when you start to be at the head, and to know how to deal with that, how to work in a business. I always think about this world. There was a quote from this producer, Marie-Thérèse Chapaz. She's a very famous producer in Switzerland, and she said that women can't take the model of success of men. The way that we see success as a woman is probably different than the way men are seeing the success. Is it to be the most performant? Is it to be the number one? Is it to be the most? Probably not. I think that we have a different way to see things. Is it the way to kind of make sure everything comes together and is robust, is like solid, and we can move forward? So I think we also need to shift what does that mean to be successful, because I don't think we are seeing the success the same way. I'm very interested overall by all the indigenous grape variety in every part of the world. Where I think there is a treasure trove, I think is Eastern Europe, all the southern part of the Balkans. There is wine that we haven't really seen on the market for political and economical reason. They start to rebuild their industry, and there is a trove of beautiful grapes. I really like what's happening in Croatia. I like this grape called Babić. I really like a lot of these Balkanic red grapes. They have been there forever, like really millenaries, and I think with what's happening with the evolution of the heat and the drought, it's really, really interesting to get into that. So I'm like thinking about this evolution of climate and looking really to see which grape have been grown well, even though they got forgotten in all this Mediterranean basin, be it in southern Spain, going up to the French arcs, like the grape like Terret, for example, Counoise, all this kind of rare one, and going down to Italy, Greece, of course. I'm a big fan of what's happening with Liatico, Mandallaria. So learning from areas where there is a connection between a plant, a culture, and an environment, a terroir, since millenaries, to understand why that specific variety grew up extremely well there, and what can I learn from that. I learned a lot from Georgia. I learned a lot about tannic structure, acid structure, taking wine in a direction I would have never thought about. So this is what I'm interested by. So in every country, looking for the really indigenous forgotten grape and seeing what they can do, their potential, and that's where I'm looking a lot right now. There is definitely a demand for high minerality content, bone-dry white. This is really, people are really loving this kind of wine. There is not that many of them. So once you go out of Chardonnay, from Burgundy, the Loire, a little bit of dry Riesling, some dry Grüne a bit on the southern, you start to get a bit fattier. So I'm looking for also this profile. Where is that profile of white wine? Which grape can give that? And then I'm very interested by every research. I was in Sweden recently. I did a whole tasting of Solaris. So I'm interested by what's happening up there in the north, all the hybrid in America, of course. all the co-ferments, just trying to prepare myself, to prepare my palate to see what the future, because it's going to have to change. So where do we go from that? Working a lot on oxidation. I believe the future will see more work of floor and skin contact and oxidation as a way to preserve freshness, which is something that Cellars totally also understood in the champagne. So I'm also testing a lot of that to try to see, okay, where are we going? How can we be done? Can we find the same satisfaction? So overall, so a lot in Europe, because there is just still so many grape varieties we don't know in Europe, and mostly from areas that we haven't really explored. It's the demand right now that we are seeing in New York grew a lot for Italy again. So kind of Italy went in the back and grew up. Spain also has been really pushed a lot. Riesling, Gruner have been a little bit more on the down. But what's ranking right now is Pinot. We're mastering Pinot Noir. As the idea of the book was to try to generate critical thinking and curiosity, which I think it's the way we are teaching about wine, the way that wine is sold. You get into very narrow-minded perspective, and the book was more about, okay, let's take a step back or a step aside, and let's really try to understand how all this came to be, what are the reality of some of the narrative, what is the potential of VTs, what is really the ability of VTs to produce these grapes that we can use to make wine, whether they're reaming to make. So it was more about less saying, oh, small grapes, small guys are great. It's more about, okay, there is an incredible adaptation of that plant. It has been driven a lot by financial, economical, political reason, religious reason. So nothing is set in stone. It's not like this idea of Grand Cru given by God. That's just not how things came to be. And let's just free ourselves from certain way of thinking to allow ourselves to suddenly rediscover an incredible diversity, because it's going to be what's going to be needed in the future. Like we hyper adapted, but it's the opposite of how the world is going. So the book was more about that. It was more about saying, don't take everything for granted. Maybe ask yourself why. And suddenly you can probably put a little bit more of a different storytelling before what you've been told. Like, for example, I know I was always upset when I was teaching Sancerre. Because when you're teaching Sancerre and when you're going for, let's say, an MS diploma, Sancerre has to be this bone dry white, no malolactic, stainless steel, Sauvignon Blanc with a lot of that green phyolic notes. And for visiting Sancerre, knowing Sancerre, I know it's been only the reality for the last 80 years. And before that, the style was very different. It was oxidative, it was riper, there was some sugar. And before that, it was red wine, it was Pinot, and they were sent to Champagne to make champagne wine. So I was teaching Sancerre like that. And you have to know Sancerre, and the only good Sancerre are the Sancerre that are made like that. So you are narrowing down everything. First, you're also forcing the producer to continue to make that standard. And so as it's getting warmer, if you put a Sancerre today that's a bit of residual sugar, you can't call it Sancerre. But why it shouldn't be Sancerre? Because historically it used to be like that. As a taster, if it's not green and lean and all that, it's not a good wine. No, it's not. So suddenly you realize, man, but that makes no sense. You are just literally handcuffing yourself, your brain, your taste, by teaching something that is a very micro part of a larger wine history. So we need to teach the larger wine history and to understand that just a moment in time. And that moment in time is going to change because the climate is changing, the taste is changing, a lot of things are changing, and it always changes. It's always been like that. So this is what I wanted to teach in the book. Is like, okay, let's not believe that what we are seeing here today has been there forever. And it's evolution, it's adaptation. What do we want to keep? What can we keep? What should we keep? How do we need to change? What should we change? That's the real question, and giving the ability of the reader to find the knowledge here and there, and then to make his own choice, thinking, okay, I think that's the direction. I would like really to help making evolve the way we taste. Like this is really what I'm working on right now. I don't believe we really realize what I mean to taste, what I mean to work with our body, with our brain, with our mind, and I think the way we have been teaching and even tasting wine has been extremely superficial and hasn't been unlocking almost anything from our possibility. And instead of just trying to reproduce and to have this kind of speed dating 50 wines or whatever, really understanding that wine can be a path to, it's a very trendy word, but to mindfulness. So by looking more about our body, how do we work, or how we are all different, knowing this difference. You know, I've always been, and I'm still totally shocked that when you do, let's say, a round table with multiple people tasting, usually you just arrive, and it's not like in sport. In sport, you warm up, you prepare yourself. We work with our body, you know, so I'm like, and I used to do tennis a lot, and you warm up. I'm like, but why should I do that? I should be warming up for that. So not only I should be warming up, so what does that mean? And then you also realize that we are all different. We know that culturally, physiologically. And I'm like, I don't know if my colleagues has a higher sensitivity to acid or to tannin or to bitterness. I don't know if I am non-sensitive to a rotundon or to a compound. No idea. So it's almost like going blind. And you're like, okay, so not only I'm not preparing my body to go through a very intense exercise of tasting, recognizing, talking, which is really, really demanding if you want to do that precisely. And I don't even know if I'm not going to over or under intensify something, or if the person next to me is going to be able to understand what I'm talking about. And I'm thinking, wow, what about all of us just doing a little like series of tests? So we have kind of our little identity card of taste, and we know, oh, I'm like that, fine. I can work on that and develop that capacity that I can do whatever I want. I will never be able to get that, fine, this is who I am. And then from that, taking off a lot of the fear, because I think some people are just like hyper stressed and they just copy other people because they don't really care. So taking off that, and then doing a lot of work on the preparation of the body. When you are going to embrace or have this experience with wine. So I'm working a lot right now with a yoga teacher, meditation, to learn how to open the chest, to really have a less tension in this upper part, or the guts, not to have also that pressing, to have posture, to have just be in the moment when I'm tasting the wine, trying to really open myself so I can have as many sensations that my brain can even like take even more. How can I remember that? And how can I take care of myself to really enjoy even more the wine? And I really believe, as we are today saying wine is dangerous because of alcohol content and all, we can still say yes, but in moderation, with a ritualization, a little bit like a tea ceremony if you want in Japan, you can have an access to yourself that nothing else can give you, because the complexity of chemistry in a wine, plus the loaded amount of symbolism in it, has no equivalent. Tea can't do that, coffee can't do that, spirits, they can't really do that at that level. So wine, if you do that in a certain way, can really be an amazing experience to discover yourself deeply, intimately, and with great joy, and without even costing you anything. You know, it's just about, so I would like to, I'm working on trying to find a way to develop a little protocol, very simple, but I would love that to be taught in wine school or in like whoever work with the taste, and to try to really move in that direction. So that's what I'm looking for right now to do.